Have you ever met anybody that wasn't that sharp? Maybe they weren't that educated, or so you thought, but they were very persuasive, influential. They could win everybody in the room. They had the real world IQ. They had the street smarts. That's the key. That's what we're talking about today. How do you get those street smarts? Don't get upset next time you lose a sale. Next time that person that you thought wasn't sharp got the promotion. It's time to make things happen. Let's do it.
Maximize your influence. Kurt Mortensen is the author of Persuasion IQ, Laws of Charisma, and the best-selling book, Maximum Influence.
Welcome to Maximize Your Influence. Kurt Mortensen here, podcast 581. We're going to talk about persuasion techniques, street smarts that work in the real world, not from a book. Not that our books are bad. I'm thinking more about college books where you're like, that wouldn't work in the real world. I remember I was asked to teach rhetorical methods once, and I'm like, what is that? He's like, well, rhetorical methods, Aristotle, ethos, pathos, logos. I'm like, isn't that sales? He's like, oh no, it was sales. And a lot of the stuff in there would not work in the real world. And I learned real fast going to college that you take the professors at night because they're the ones that are doing it, making it happen. It's not true for all professors, but sometimes academia, you get stuck in it. You're like, that's a good theory, but that doesn't work in the real world. Let's talk about the real world, that real world IQ, those street smarts, the social radar, practical intelligence, social intelligence, whatever you want to call it. Let's master these skills. But first, the persuasion blunder. Don't. I was monitoring negotiation. One of the fun things I get to do to be a fly on the wall was the first initial meeting. Both parties wanted to come to an agreement. They were sitting there trying to get things done, and the sales rep would glance at their watch, their Apple Watch. I don't know if it was a time thing or getting a text thing or something happened at home thing. We don't know. But ding, ding, the other person thinks they're bored. They're losing interest. And then he dropped the price by 20%. Not prompted, not asked for, not a concession, just dropped the price. Because he was in a panic. He's bored. He's not interested. I've got to get this deal done just because they looked at their watch. Again, there's a lot of things that could be happening. Maybe they were bored, but we want to look for clusters when they're bored, not just the watch. We want to look at it in their face. We want to see it in their tone of voice. We want to see it in their demeanor. They left money on the table. They went down too fast because in a panic. They were trying to read the body language, which is good, but you have to look for 2 or 3 things in a cluster or ask, am I boring you? Are you still with me? Are you still interested? Engage them. Do a trial close. Do you see the power of that? Is that exciting to you? Do you see how that will solve your problems? Did not happen. It was a check of the watch, a panic, and it went downhill before anything could be saved. So the mistake, the blunder, is overreading the tell. Remember we talked about poker a few weeks ago, the tell? All right, tells are good, but you need to see multiple tells and a cluster of different tells, because just because you spot a micro expression, a pause, a fidget, a glance at the watch, doesn't always mean what you think it means. It could. I'm glad you caught it, but look for other ones, other tells, other clusters of different things that point to the same thing. Then, and only then, you can adjust your negotiation or persuasion encounter. Why do people do it? It's a confirmation bias. You're looking for anything to justify your next move, what you should happen, what you think is going to happen, what you think is happening, assumption, or sometimes it's just impatience. We're trying to get in, get it done, and get it done fast. So again, look for those clusters. Now, if they glance at their watch, they glance again, they're leaning back, the answers are getting shorter, the eye contact is going down, or they might even ask, how much longer is this going to take? Ding, ding. All those point to, I'm not interested, go away. But one of them does not. So look for at least 3. Because in the Applied Cognitive Psychology Journal, the research shows that a single cue, a single tell, are only 54% accurate. You have a 50% chance, but catch this. When you see 3 cues, it jumps to 80%. Again, not perfect, but it's a lot better than 54%. So always look for at least 3 cues, 3 tells before acting on what you're seeing, what you're reading. Off to listener email.
Oh, boy!
Remember, you can reach me at maximizeyourinfluence@gmail.com or go to maximizeyourinfluence.com. There you can find your free Persuasion IQ assessment, advanced training, and home of Influence University. This is Lauren from Canada. She says, Kurt, I have a high IQ, but I'm trying to increase my EQ, or what you call street smarts. What are some tools and techniques I can use to have better EQ? It's emotional intelligence. Street smarts, we'll be talking about that today. That's the topic of our podcast. So, Lauren, let's talk about it. Some you probably already have, some you need to fine-tune, some you can add to your influence toolbox. And that takes us to our geeky Scarly article. Comes from the Cambridge Handbook of Intelligence and Cognitive Neuroscience, where they looked at studies looking at practical intelligence, IQ, to street smarts. They say in an increasingly complex world, traditional IQ falls short in predicting real-world success. Understanding street smarts or practical intelligence is not always taught in the classroom. Some people just pick it up on the street. It bridges the gap between abstract knowledge and actionable wisdom, right? There's the knowledge and the actionable wisdom, enabling others to read the room, seize opportunities, and outmaneuver obstacles in unpredictable environments. Now, the reason this happens, we have our formal education, and there is some social interaction, there is some problem solving, but there is not a lot of experiential learning. Now, schools, learning system, and colleges, I believe are getting better than that, but a lot of times, the courses taught aren't soft skills. They just expect people to pick them up along the way. So they found that street smarts correlates with career advancement, promotions, and success in sales. So the key takeaways is that street smarts, social intelligence, it's trainable. IQ, most say, is fixed. Practical intelligence, social intelligence can grow by deliberate practice, deliberate exposure, role-playing, and prioritizing learning these skills. Here's another interesting takeaway. The social intelligence outweighs credentials in chaos, meaning when things go crazy, things go off script, you need to pivot, you're getting heckled, whatever's happening, street smarts and that type of chaos outweigh credentials. So bottom line, street smarts is not a luxury. It's the ultimate equalizer, they say. And they say that mastering these street smarts turns everyday encounters into launch pads for extraordinary impact. And this is true. I teach some college courses on public speaking, other soft skills, and I'll cringe, but that's probably not the right word. When I get an engineer, a statistician, a math major, an accountant in the class, it's a very hard class for them because they want the formula. There's always a right answer. In soft skills and public speaking and in persuasion, there's not always one right answer. I try to prepare them for that, say, look, I'll give you formulas to follow, but we have to add some things to that. For example, I had a statistician just this last semester get up in front of the class and do a presentation, and half their grade comes from their classmates, their audience. And they got a really poor grade. And he was upset. He was livid. How could they? I followed your formula. I did your 5 steps. I'm like, you didn't smile. You didn't have eye contact. You didn't have this. The 5 steps is the format. That is a formula, but you have to add some of these soft skills to make it happen. You can have the formula, but you got to add the street smarts. You got to smile. You got to have eye contact. You've got to add a little sense of humor. Those things were hard for him to grasp. So let's talk about this real-world superpower, these street smarts. So basically, let's define this. It's practical intelligence, the ability to read people, adapt fast and pivot, and make smart moves in messy real-life situations. But your ability to survive, to spot a threat, to identify deception, to build trust in 30 seconds, to know when to walk away and close deals, that could be called social radar, and that equals persuasion power. And it's critical when you look at persuasion, negotiation, influence, sales, even leadership. 90% of influence happens not because of the product or the proposal. It's the influence. It's the street smarts. It's turning the no into a yes. It's knowing when they're bluffing, when to concede, when to walk. That's the key, because if not, you're influencing blind. So what can we do? What tools can we add? So identifying street smarts, one that comes up is the ability to persuade and influence just a little bit at a time. Remember we've talked about FITD, foot in the door. It's also called the micro yes ladder. Sequential request has a lot of different names. We've talked about all of them. Understanding the human brain is important here because it's easier to persuade the brain a little bit at a time than a lot bit at a time. It's easier to persuade in 3-4 meetings than one big meeting. I know you want to be one and done, but that's not how the brain works. And so this foot in the door, this micro yes ladder is pretty simple. First of all, you start with the easiest yeses first, and then you stack them. And each yes you get, the next yes is easier. The next yes is easier, and that's how it works. Because each yes releases dopamine. Most people like to be agreeable. And if you get 3 small yeses, Friedman and Fraser, their research shows you get 80% higher compliance. Do you want to save 10 hours a week? Getting ready to start? Just simple yeses, simple yeses. So remember, each yes gets easier. This can be done in multiple encounters, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. And even just the movement of your head that says yes. Have you seen the commercials where they're singing a song and the words are at the bottom, there's a vertical bouncing ball because your head goes up and down? You're more persuaded because just the movement. They did studies with headphones and college students. They're playing rock music, and a third were tested the headphones. So they thought. A third went side to side in the no fashion. A third went up and down in the yes fashion. A third did nothing. And then there's a commercial to raise tuition. The ones going up and down in the yes motion were more persuaded. So there's something about the movement, getting the yes. And understand, you get the easiest yes first. Too many people will go to a negotiation and go right to the money, right to the price, right to the finance, right to the hardest thing first. Of course, they're going to get a no, but you want the easiest yes first. All right, when's the delivery date? Who's on the team? Easy yeses, and it makes a big difference. Another thing with street smarts is learning to read people, learning to read body language, a social scan. So you could read their body language, their micro expressions in 3 seconds. That's street smarts. It's 3 seconds. You're like, well, that's fast. But your brain processes nonverbal cues 200 times faster than words. Did you catch that? This is Dr. Meribian. Your brain processes nonverbal cues 200 times faster than words. So within seconds, you have to read the situation, read the person. When someone comes up to talk to you, are they standing square to you with their shoulders square to you? Are their toes pointed towards you? Are their eyes looking at you? Eyes are the window to the soul. All these things show that they're connecting with you. When their shoulders are not square and their toes are pointed away from you and you've lost eye contact, you have lost them, and you better fix the situation or cut your losses. Another key of street smarts is knowing when to use silence or knowing when to shut up. Let's not sugarcoat this. No secret that great persuaders are great listeners. They ask 3 times more questions, and they use silence. They don't get all freaked out about silence. See, a lot of people, when they're silenced, they got to fill in the silence. They got to talk. You're not supposed to do that, but if you let them do that, they're going to tell you everything you need to know to persuade them, to influence them, to close them. So when you say, do you see the power of that? And there's silence, be comfortable with that. Just wait for them to talk. And when they answer it, keep the silence there. They'll keep talking till you have all the information that you need. Because what happens, according to Dr. Cialdini, is silence triggers discomfort, a little dissonance. They need to talk, and that's when a concession comes. That's when they reveal something you need to know, and that's when it needs to happen. So how long? People always ask. I would say count to 10, give yourself something to do, maintain eye contact. If it gets longer than that, go ahead and break in, because they heard the first one that talked loses. So if it's getting way, way awkward, more than 10 seconds, you can say, I can tell you're thinking about something, what it is. So you still maintain control with the question, and they still have to break the silence, but it's not as awkward. Another one we've noticed with street smarts is the willingness and the ability to walk away. They are different. A lot of people want to get it done. When you're sent in, it has to be done today, seal the deal today, close the deal today, and you're feeling all that pressure. That hurts your street smarts. That hurts your leverage. So know when it's time to walk. Know when you need other alternatives. BATNA, Harvard term for best alternative to a negotiated agreement, meaning you're not just going in with one option. There are different things. You're knowing when to pivot, knowing when to walk, knowing when to use scarcity, knowing when to add a bonus, knowing when to give a concession. So just in knowing that you can walk gives you power, gives you leverage. Other thing about street smarts is other people are talking about them. Social validation, meaning they've heard about you, they've heard about your company, they've heard about your product, they've seen the testimonials, they were recommended, they were referred to you. That's social validation, that's social proof. So when you get there, you already have trust and credibility. I think about Amazon. They have a reputation. They do what they say. When it has 5,000 five-star reviews, all of that's validation. It becomes trustless. You just know it works. And when other people have talked about you, worked with you on the street, right? The street smarts, they've heard about you, then you have that social validation and that instant trust. So if you need to crank that up, use testimonials, referrals, recommendations, introductions, reviews, whatever you need to do to increase your social validation. Because according to Nielsen Global, they do a lot of research on ads. Here's the number. 93% trust their peers over the ads. People always trust other people before they believe you. I know you don't want to hear that. We're not here to sugarcoat that because you have something to gain. You're gaining commission. You're gaining acceptance to a proposal. You're gaining something, so they're always going to persuade others, not that they should, over you. That's where social validation kicks in. Another one, the obligation trigger. You see this in every culture around the world. You do something for somebody, they do something back. And the numbers show, according to the Journal of Applied Social Psychology, that 70% return favors. And it seems like people have great street smarts. People always owe them something. Not in a manipulation type way, but they're always giving. And when they need it, they will ask for something and people return it 70% of the time. Free audit, free proposal, give somebody time, whatever it is, build up that bank account. Not right when you need it. I mean, it still works, but not as well. Sometimes it takes time. For example, I had this guy come to my office, wanted to do our paper supply and office products. I'm like, no, we're under contract. We got this, but thanks. And he says, would you mind if I left a dozen warm chocolate chip cookies? And I'm like, duh. And he did. And he would come back every couple of months and we, no, sorry. And eventually we did business together. So when you use reciprocity, what it does is it works 70% of the time, but at least it puts you on the top of the list for them to do business with you. And the final one is what's called future pace, meaning they can see themselves doing it. They can visualize themselves doing it. You're using words like imagine, picture this, visualize this with me. Because until they see it mentally, it won't happen physically. You've got to plant that seed in their mind. So what can you do to make them see and feel that win, that solution to their problem? Because this mental stimulation, this visualization, activates the same brain areas as the real experience. Picture your team hitting quota by Q2. Creates the picture. Now you could also add from NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, the presupposition. It's basically assuming the sale, you're talking in a way that they're already doing it. I wouldn't lead with this. This is probably when they're on board or sitting on the fence. Would you prefer installation Monday or Tuesday? You're going to love how this photocopier saves you 2 hours a week. All assumes they're going to schedule the appointment or get the photocopier. After you start using, once we implement this new system, once you double your investment, when you start the training process, when the problem's solved and you become the hero, all presuppositions. Again, don't lead with this, but once they're on the fence, they're leaning towards your product or service or idea, it's great to paint the picture, get them to imagine, use presuppositions, because you got to create it mentally before it happens physically. That's our podcast today, Street Smarts Decoded, and podcast 5A1. We'll continue with the special on YinfluenceUniversity.com. 90% off lifetime membership. This has the 52-week advanced course, the library, the audiobooks, the videos, the persuasion software, pretty much my life's work in one spot that you can go with fast or as slow as you want. Check it out at influenceuniversity.com/special. Everything else will be on maximizeyourinfluence.com. Thanks for being here. Tell your family and friends and enemies about the podcast. We can be found on Audible, iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. Take something you learned today. Enhance your street smarts, increase your social intelligence, become more influential, a better negotiator, better at reading people, and go out and persuade with power.